Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown defensively late in games. We know what Al Horford brings to the team, his intangibles. Obviously, Al's not necessarily a huge center, but he's a guy that makes good defensive plays and is in the right spot. So that's going to be another problem with them is who's going to close games out. But I think the great thing about that, I think you got to roll with who's hot at the time. I think you're going to have two units, which is a rarity in this league. But when you're able to have two units that you can go to, you can kind of focus on the season. I said this a little bit last week. I think if the Celtics' goal is to win the NBA title, they won 55 games last year. So you imagine you won 55 games last year with Kyrie Irving playing half the season and no Gordon Hayward. Your goal's got to be a little higher to get to 60. And I think they're deep enough where they won't wear each other out, where they can actually get to 60 wins. So that's something that I think they need to think about. You will hear me talk about this throughout the season. A lot of people will. Home court advantage is huge. If people did not watch the Celtics last year, the Celtics were 10-1 at home in the playoffs. If I'm not mistaken, Clement.
I know you said they only lost one.
They only lost one. I think that was Game 7 to LeBron and the Cavs, but they were undefeated at home. So you got to put that in perspective too. And I just believe when you're playing against a team, if you get to the finals and where obviously I'm letting the cat out the bag, you think Golden State is going to get to the finals, you want to have home court advantage. So I just think that's very important. But I think that's all going to be up to Brad Stevenson and how he's going to choose to work his team. I think all of that's going to be important. But I love the Celtics. I love their lineup. If they're healthy, I got them winning 60 games and being the number one seed in the Eastern Conference.
Woo-wee. I'm with you on that one. As we move on to the next team, I do want to say too though, health is, I guess, an issue because last year certainly it was Hayward and it was Kyrie. You know, this year for some reason, what if Al Horford goes down? Not trying to wish anything bad on
anybody. Well, they got Robert Williams, good draft pick out of Texas A&M, young guy.
Can he get to the arena on time? Like, you know, that man had some issues waking up and stuff like that, right? He set his alarm clock.
Well, you know, when you go to Texas A&M, I cover the Southeastern Conference, and they had a little turmoil on their team. So they've had some problems down there. He has to understand. But let me tell you something when you start showing up late.
Okay. When
you start getting that pink slip,
right,
and you start missing them paychecks, yeah, that you start showing up late.
You get up on time then, right?
Oh, yeah, them fines start kicking in. So I'm pretty sure. See, that's one thing. If it becomes a habit, you don't want the GM and the head coach to step in there and start taking $5,000 and $10,000 out your paycheck when you're a rookie and a rookie salary. And I think he's like the 27th, 28th pick, so he's probably making 1.5, 1.6 in Boston after taxes. You don't want to start getting into that paycheck.
Who you got as your number 2 team?
I got the Toronto Raptors, a team that won 59 games last year. Obviously, you're swapping out DeMar DeRozan for Kawhi Leonard. On paper, Kawhi Leonard is the better player when healthy. One of our best two-way players, if not the best two-way player that we got in the league. You got to believe that they're going to be just as good. They kept the core intact, and now you got a guy who can close games out, and Kawhi Leonard, and you also have a guy that can guard the best wing player on the opposing team. So you got to figure that they're going to be just as good as they are. I like Boston a little bit better than them because of their Boston's depth and the fact that they have 2 All-Stars. Not saying Kyle Lowry's not not an All-Star, but he's had moments where he hasn't shown up in the playoffs over these last 3 years where we question his superstar ability. And we've had big discussions about Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan. But I like Toronto. I think, when you can add a guy like Kawhi Leonard, they're going to be right there. And that's going to be, if everything works out right, that's going to be a terrific Eastern Conference Finals.
And as we go back and forth, I actually had the Raptors 3rd. I wonder.
Well, let's go with who you got too.
Okay.
Don't get into the Raptors. Who you got too?
At 2, I got Philadelphia. That's what I got at number 2. The Philadelphia 76ers. Oh yeah.
Explain.
Well, number 1 for me, it's a chemistry thing. I have the Raptors I had the Celtics first, Philly 2nd, and the Raptors 3rd. It's a chemistry thing. For me, we know what we have. We've talked about the 1-2 punch between Embiid and Ben Simmons. We've been there before. Brett Brown is a guy who's been there. The culture, J.J. Redick is back. for me, familiarity and chemistry matters so much. You could say that overall, Toronto has more talent. I wouldn't disagree with that. And when you talk about Kawhi and certainly Kyle Lowry and how deep their bench is, and then when you add in Serge Ibaka, but I just don't know. Number one, I know Kawhi is saying the right things, and he's talking about he's going to go there with an open mind, but will he be dialed in? We just don't know. That's just a question mark. Just an unknown. We don't know, will he be all in? We don't know, will the free agency be hanging over the squad? They have a brand new coach, Nick Nurse. I know he was on the staff before, but still, as a first-year head coach, will he be able to rally the troops with the Kawhi situation? And then, I'm not so sure that Kyle Lowry will play at the level that will allow him to be the second team. He turns 33 in March, and he's a guy who has missed time at significant portions. Last year, he did play 78, but the year before that, he played 60. 2 years before that, he only played 70 games. So I don't know, as Kyle Lowry gets older, can he be that number 2 guy that you need him to be for the Raptors to be the number 2 team in the Eastern Conference?
I have question marks about Kyle Lowry, and that's why I just told you why. That's why I have Boston over Toronto.
Right.
Just because of that, because you don't know which one you're going to get. But if he's playing at a very high level, then sky's the limit how far Toronto can go. I believe that Kawhi Leonard is going to be locked in. I think the fan base in Toronto, being that it's a real, basketball, even though, everybody thinks of hockey when you go to Canada, but I think they've done a great job of making that a real big fan base. I think he's gonna be the man for once.
Okay.
In his career. I know he was the man in San Antonio, but it's a different type of being the man in San Antonio.
Yeah.
You still always thought of Duncan and Ginobili and Tony Parker and Pop. They had more of a grasp over that organization than just Kawhi Leonard.
Right.
Where in Toronto, people in Toronto are gonna do their best to get behind Kawhi Leonard. So I think that's gonna be a difference. I think he's gonna be very focused, very poised. I think he's, after missing 73 games last year, should be really excited about playing. So I like Toronto too.
Let me say this while you're on the Toronto point. Does it worry you just being on the same page? Like, that's what I said, kind of chemistry of Philadelphia, getting used to a whole new coach, all new players. Lowry and DeRozan, they knew each other. They were cool. You and Paul Pierce had a feel for each other's game, where you wanted the ball, what you were thinking.
Without question on that.
They don't have that in Toronto.
They don't, and it's always a quick fix. And, all we can go to is Paul George and Russell Westbrook.
Okay.
Even though it wasn't pretty at times with those two, but it seemed like they didn't get in each other's way from still being able to produce on the court, get their numbers, if you want to put that up there. If it's about guys getting their numbers, they still were able to get their numbers, so I still like them. Now, going third for me is the Philadelphia 76ers.
Okay. I thought you were going to go crazy a little bit and put Washington all the way up there.
I told you, let me think about it.
No doubt. So go into it.
I like Philly. Obviously, I've told you some of my concerns, over the last couple of weeks of, one, Ben Simmons being able to shoot the basketball. His improvement, is he going to improve from shooting the ball? Because I think, obviously, when you get in the playoffs, it becomes very difficult to get to the basket the way he gets to the basket. We saw him to the basket last year during the season. We saw the Celtics really, do a number on him defensively where they forced him to shoot the basketball, and he was unable to do that. So I'm looking forward to seeing if he's going to improve that way. I do like the pickup of Wilson Chandler. I'm a big Wilson Chandler fan. I think he's going to give him great minutes at the 3. He can play a little 4. He's got good size. I'm concerned, though, because you lost Marco Bellinelli.
Okay.
And people may say, well, what is he going to do? He was huge for them. Energy, his ability to shoot the 3 ball, the ability to play multiple positions. They're going to miss him. It seems like already I've watched a couple preseason games that starting to go with your guy, who you always go after, Markelle Fultz.
Okay.
It looks like they're going to start him at the 2-guard position and maybe bring J.J. Redick off the bench. So it'd be interesting to see. So, but if he's able to play the way he's capable, play like a number 1 pick, I mean, now they puts them in the mix with the Torontos and the Bostons. But right now, I love Embiid. There's still their situation now. The expectations are very high.
For sure.
It's different. The last 2 years, they've gotten away, and we've kind of been like, whoa, Philly can be good. They won 52 games last year.
You're not sneaking up on anybody.
No, they come to play. But one thing about Philly is a great thing. They're going to sell out at home.
Right.
The fans are going to get behind them, so they should be a good home team. But I got Philly at number 3.
I think Embiid is going to even be better. I've seen some of the highlights, and I think Coach Brett Brown, even though it's a 3-point game, he's got him to maybe go in the post a little bit more. I know they played Orlando a couple days ago, and Embiid was just talking about going at Mo Bamba and talking to him on social media, right? Like, you can't hold me. And then what we saw in that Orlando game, for the first time in his NBA career, we saw Markelle Fultz hit a 3. Last season, in the preseason, regular season, the playoffs, he didn't make a single 3-pointer because his shot was busted. So I've been reading a lot about Markelle, and he said he spent 4 and 5 hours a day in the gym. And you always talk about over the summer just getting your game right. He was shooting shots, and he says now he has no hesitation because he didn't have any confidence last year in the shot. But you can see off the pick and roll, pulling up. In transition, pulling up. Even when he knocked down his 3, it was a corner 3. So like you said, if he can be that number 1 pick, if he can give you 12 to 15 per game, if he can get his jumper right, he can create his own shot. To me, that will be the difference that they need to be number 2 overall. And a point about Ben Simmons, you real hard on him in terms of developing his jumper, which is valid. I agree with you. For me, free throws is an area that he needs to improve in as well. I hear you a lot of times when you talk about when Carmelo was his best, he would get to the line. If you can't shoot a jumper like Ben Simmons, at least get to the free throw line. Like last year, his rookie year, Ben was only going to the line 4 times per game. That's not getting a jump.
Well, when you don't shoot the basketball really well from the free throw line, and I mean, sometimes it's mental.
Right, you don't want to get fouled.
Yeah, guys don't want to get fouled.
But part of his game is, though, since he can't shoot, going to the hole. So he needs to go to the hole, and he needs to at least, he certainly needs to work on his jumper, but he needs to work on his free throws. So at least he has one of those aspects of his game. Okay, my jumper may not be great, but I can at least at 65%, 70%. That's still not great from the free throw line, but it's better than like 56. Last year, he was at like 56% from the free throw line. So I think he's going to take a step forward in one of those areas, whether it's the jumper or the free throws, and then you add Markelle Fultz to the mix. You talk about Wilson Chandler, and even Dario Saric. For me, that's a guy that might be under the radar. He can knock it down from the outside. They still got a real promising young squad.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't have them better than Toronto and Boston. I know you do, but the one thing I do love about Philly, though, is the youth, the energy. I just want to see different now. I mean, it's different now. The expectations are there. But I am going to be honest, and when we eventually do one of our previous shows, we'll get to awards. Embiid will be one of my guys I pick for, could possibly win MVP. So don't get me wrong. I'm not going away from what he's capable of doing. But he's yet to show me. I want to see 75 games. I want to see him suit him up 75 games. I mean, I want to see, this guy can be a guy that you can, count on game in and game out. So it'll be interesting to see if he'll be able to do that. But I guess, the order's not the same, but
same 3
teams.
teams.
Still got the same 3 teams in the Eastern Conference. So it looks pretty good.
So we're gonna take a pause right there after the first 3 teams. Still to come, who do we have in the middle of the pack in the Eastern Conference, and who will be fighting for maybe those final 2 seeds in the Eastern Conference as well. Don't move, SouthSide Heat coming back after this break. I had it on mute. I forgot I had it on mute. I'm blazing in here, man. Like I got this thing on. We're blazing.
Yeah, we got about a 2 second, like about 3 second delay here.
Okay.
But that's good. We're good. I just heard.
Well, when I was like, I'm blazing.
Yeah.
No, I had to decide president. So now we'll do the 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 7, 8. Who fighting for the playoff spot? 225. Let's give us 1 minute on that thing.
Here, what do you have here? Here, 2 boxes on. Like, how do you got that one on? You got 4 minutes on that.
No, I'm just gonna take it for like 1 minute.
We got to think of Refuge going up. We're going to do another event there. But nah, you got enough on your stuff. Just
No, we can do that right now.
It ain't plugged up.
is that plugged up?
Charge.
Let's see if I can. It's not working.
I'm about to come back. Y'all good?
No juice.
You got a short or something?
Yeah, it's a good short problem. Look at how much juice you have.
SouthSide Heat, Clement Townsend, Antoine Walker. Be sure to watch the SouthSide Heat every Thursday on Be in the Mix, Facebook Live, or listen on Q4.org from 2 to 4 p.m. Also, make sure you like, share, and support SouthSide Heat, Be in the Mix, and Q4 Radio. And one note of housekeeping, if you are in Chicago, Thursday, October 18th at Refuge Live, come out and party with a purpose. Be in the Mix, presenting music and the mission. Experience some of the best Chicago artists in R&B and hip-hop. This event will support and bring awareness to liver cancer. Refuge Live is located at 416 South Clark Street. Be sure to follow us on Instagram, C Townsend TV on the gram, also Twan Walker 8. We post clips, excerpts from the show throughout the week. Some of the great sound bites we post on Instagram, and certainly last week, Twan, I had to post about you, Mr. South Beach versus Wade County, employee number 8 versus Dwayne Wade, and I didn't think that you don't kick it. I just wondered if you party harder and lifted up more than Shaq and D Wade, and D Wade chimed in and said you ain't lying. So okay, you got it in South Beach. My bad, my bad.
I mean, I don't know if that's something necessary to brag about, but I was Mr. South Beach. They were, you understand, they were D Wade and Shaq on the court. I'm not going to take that away. But off the court, you had to come see me.
No doubt about it.
You know what I mean? I was Mr. South Beach.
And then I saw you post on IG you and a picture with Shaquille O'Neal. You for the Throwback Thursday. I see you reminiscing.
Yeah. I had to go back to you, man. Bring out. You saw that champagne. Let's pop that champagne in the locker room, baby. Those are precious moments. But I got some. I was lucky enough to have some nice pics of that championship run. So the memories, man. You never forget those days.
Where's the ring at, man? Where's the championship ring?
The ring, man. The ring. Let me tell you, it's an interesting story behind the ring. A true story behind the ring. So listen, you know when I filed bankruptcy, right? So when I filed bankruptcy, you have to give up all your assets, or they try to come after all your assets.
Okay.
So obviously I couldn't lie and say I don't have my championship ring.
Okay.
So when it came out, we had to put it up. Like it's like you got to auction it off. So basically I had to buy my championship ring back.
You auctioned it off, sold it.
No, I didn't have to sell it.
Okay.
They make you sell it.
Okay.
It becomes anything that they can turn liquid, they want to turn liquid.
Right.
Anyway, so a guy outbidded me for my ring. Can you believe that? A guy paid $30 grand for my ring.
Wow.
Yep. So I had to go back to the Heat and get another ring.
Oh, so they were nice enough, because I don't know. And is that something that they do? Like, you know. Because you didn't necessarily lose the ring. Obviously, you had to sell a ring. So
no, I didn't. I tried to buy it back. He just outbidded me.
Right.
It's like he wanted.
Right.
That was like $30 grand. So obviously, when you and the trustees are going to go with the most money.
Right, no doubt about it.
So in that situation, so I got outbidded for my ring and had to get it back.
But it seems like that's, I guess, a nice gesture on the part of the Heat organization. Because let's keep it real. Let's keep it 100. They didn't have to say.
Oh, no. I was like, man, I got to get my ring. Yeah, of course. It was me calling. Like, hey, they didn't know. They didn't know.
Right. But could the Heat theoretically could have been like, nah, bro, we gave you a ring.
Yeah, I mean, if they wanted to.
Right.
Yeah, I mean.
But they did you a solid.
Yeah, without question.
All right. I'm assuming we're going to hear the Heat coming up in this discussion in terms of the top 8 teams in the Eastern Conference. We left off after the first 3. Who do you have in the middle of the pack in the East?
Might be a little different than what you think. So, as my 4th seed in the Eastern Conference, I got the Washington Wizards. I know you're not big on the Wizards, and I have the Washington Wizards as the 4th seed in the Eastern Conference. This is a team last year that were 43 and 39. John Wall missed a significant portion of the season.
He missed like half the season. I think he only played 41 games.
Yeah, he missed like half the season. So this team is going to be surprising. I know you don't think they have a lot. I believe they have a lot in the tank. I think the addition of Dwight Howard, if healthy, he showed he could be healthy last year. Obviously, the reports coming out of Washington camp right now is they've been taking it slow with him. His back has been bothering him, so he hasn't been participating a lot in preseason. But I'm banking that he's going to be healthy. I love the addition of Austin Rivers, Jeff Green. One thing about the Washington Wizards, and you can tell me if I'm wrong about this, we always said Washington Wizards had one of the best starting 5s in the league. And their benches, when they get to their bench, that's where the problems are. So now they finally have put some pieces on the bench. When you think about that, they still got Kelly Oubre on the bench, coming off, who showed a lot of progress last year. So I just like their team. Otto Porter Jr. is getting better and better every year. A guy who's improved his 3-point shot tremendously. Bradley Beal and John Wall, it's time for them to turn the corner as this all-star backcourt. Now we need those guys to take the next step. So I really like this team. I believe that they can be really, really good. A lot of people is going to be shocked that I picked Washington to be 4th, but I believe that they're going to be very, very good. Scott Brooks, a veteran coach who's coached in the finals, who's coached good teams, will be able to get them over the hump.
You know how I feel about the Washington Wizards. I just think they are a middle-of-the-pack team. I had the Wizards actually at 6th in terms of my top 8.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of had this discussion a little bit, so I looked at them a little bit deeper. They have had solid players, in my opinion, around Beal and Wall. We've seen Beal and Wall now for 6 years, I believe it is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. For 6 years. In those 6 years, they've been to the playoffs 4 times, missed the playoffs twice, and never been past the conference semifinals. So they've been with each other 6 years, never been to the conference finals. And I went back and looked. Of course, we all remember the year they had Paul Pierce. And I think that was the year that John Wall got injured in the playoffs. They've had Nene on their team. They've had a guy like Trevor Ariza on their team. I feel like they've had decent personnel. Some of that personnel was with Whitman. Some of that personnel was with Scott Brooks. But this team, to me, just never lives up to the potential. In the time that Beal and Wall have been there, they've never even won 50 games, Antoine. Like, to me, that's surprising. And we talk about what we saw from the 76ers last year, who in the rookie season with Ben Simmons, in just the second year for Embiid, they won 52 games. And the Wizards, in 6 years with Wall and Beal, have never even won 50 games. So I hear what you're saying in terms of a Jeff Green and an Austin Rivers. I just don't see why, after all this time, it will be any different. Why they won't just be a middle-of-the-pack team. What's going to take them to the upper echelon? In my opinion, at some point, you just know who people are. The Toronto Raptors, we've seen them have issues with LeBron James. You just know who the Raptors are. And I just think, as much as I like John Wall, we just know who the Washington Wizards are. And I do not believe I'll just have to throw that in there. I do not believe that Dwight Howard is going to help this team because to me he's a cancer. He's a guy that does not stretch the floor. He's not a big man that can shoot a three, which we need in this day and age. And I don't think he helps in the locker room because I don't think he's really that committed to winning.
Well, I think last year showed a lot. To go to Charlotte and be in the situation that he was in, to play 81 games, to put up the numbers that he did, I felt like Dwight Howard could have been an all-star last year easily with no problem with the numbers that he put up. I think he showed that he could be healthy for a season by playing, 81 games last year. I think I understand where you're coming from, but I think the difference and the benefit of the doubt is I'm giving, as any good player in this league, and don't get me wrong, individually you got some very good talented players on that team. But I think at some point, I think John Wall has to look himself in the mirror and say, I need to turn the corner. If I want to be known as one of the elite point guards, he's getting paid like one of the elite point guards. If I want to take my game to the next level, I got to get the 50 wins. I got to advance in the playoffs. So I think he's going to have a chip on his shoulder. I follow John Wall on social media. I told you that earlier, and I saw him working out immediately as soon as the season was over with, really showing a lot of dedication to getting back in great form and great shape. I think Bradley Beal is just scratching the surface as being one of the elite two guards in this league. Hopefully he'll be aggressive. I think you told me about Scott Brooks talking about Bradley Beal being more aggressive, especially
Shooting a lot more threes.
Yeah, shooting a lot more threes from three-point line, which I think he can be one of the best shooters in the league. So those things I'm thinking about, and then they have one of the Morris boards.
Markeith.
Yeah, they got one of the Morris boards. That's tough. So I just like that roster. Austin Rivers has played a ton of meaningful games out with the Clippers. Obviously, we know what Jeff Green can do. We saw Jeff Green not necessarily have a great series against Golden State, but he had some moments in that Golden State series where he played well in the finals. So I'm sure that's something for him to build on. So I like Washington. I think they're going to be the surprise of the East, and it's a team you're going to have to watch out for.
Is it not surprising, though, that John Wall has been in the league 7 years and has never won 50? Isn't that surprising?
I think injuries have played a big part in that. If he was able to stay healthy, I think they would have got to 50. He's had some spectacular years, but he's not been able to finish the years because of injury. I think the year that they had Paul Pierce, he brought them some veteran leadership, a guy who can close games out. But let's be honest, Paul was kind of on the downside
Absolutely.
of his career, so you would count on a guy on the downside of his career. But obviously, you got to look at it like this too. Washington did not, the injuries to John Wall did not bother them. They believe that this is the guy that can get them over the hump. They built this franchise around him. I know it's been 7 years. He's just now turned the corner to his prime. The one thing that stands out, and I always remember about John Wall, when he came in the league, he played at one speed. He's a guy that just can play fast. And as the years progressed, he's become a great passer, a guy that can make a jump shot. He's still not a great three-point shooter, but he's developed a mid-range game to where he can make a mid-range jump shot. So he's gotten better and better. It just had injuries. Some guys, we've seen, obviously being here in Chicago, we've seen teams kind of turn their back on guys that have gotten hurt and not stay with them. But Washington has paid John Wall and stayed with him throughout his career. But watch me, this is my surprise team in the Eastern Conference is the Washington Wizards.
All right, so you rolling with the Washington Wizards at 4.
Yeah, who you got it for? You never mentioned who you got it for.
At 4, I have the Indiana Pacers. I'm assuming...
You might as well go ahead and talk to them. I got them at 5. You can go ahead and talk to them.
Certainly what we saw from them last year, they took a huge step forward and took LeBron James and the Cavs to 7 games in the first round of the playoffs, and I believe they gained a lot of confidence. Now the thing is they have the target on their back. We saw Victor Oladipo make a big step forward in terms of being named most improved player, easily the best season of his career, living up to a guy who was taken number 2 overall. Can he be the man? Can he keep that going? They added Tyreke Evans. I think that's going to be huge because Tyreke really balled with Memphis last year, averaged about 19 per game, and he doesn't have to be the man. He could just be a supplemental piece. And then I feel like Miles Turner needs to take a step forward as well. 3 years in, a guy who's like 7 feet tall that can knock it down. And this is like the last year of his rookie deal. I believe he's eligible for a rookie extension. So I really like what they have there. And not to mention they added Doug McDermott too. You got Dougie McBuckets, a guy who, for me, hasn't lived up to the hype. Didn't do it with the Bulls, OKC, but maybe he can find his way there in Indiana. But I like the moves that they made that I mentioned, and I like them just building on what we saw from them last year.
Well, I got Indiana 5. You got
Okay.
them 4, I got them 5. 148 games last year. Obviously, epic playoff series against the Cleveland Cavaliers. Could have went either way. Some people argue about the goaltending call, but it could have went either way. Where the Pacers could have advanced out the first round of the playoffs last year. I do like what the Pacers are building there. Victor Oladipo has showed great promise. Turned himself now into an all-star in this league. Be interested to see how he comes back after playing so well last year. Love the addition of Tariq Evans, another guy, a playmaker, because they lost Lance Stevenson.
True.
So as much as we don't like to talk about Lance Stevenson was huge for them last year. A guy that came off the bench and was a playmaker for them. So that is one guy they were able to replace. I love their young bigs, Sabonis and Turner. I think both of those guys are great young bigs. So they got some pieces in play. I'm not necessarily sold on Doug McDermott. I know he's a guy who's capable of knocking down shots, been a great scorer in college. He's had moments in the pros where he's scored the basketball, so I'm not going to take that away from him. But I got him as the 5th seed. I mean, this is a team that won 48 games, so they're going to be very confident. They should play with a lot of confidence, this group is. Their swag should be up, being that the LeBron James is out there.
Right. You have to feel like it's wide open.
It's got to feel like that. Nate McMillan, it's like he's got them playing his brand of basketball. The organization seems like they trust him. Dave gave him a contract extension. So all the pieces are in play for the Pacers to take that next step. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes. But I got him 5th. I don't have him 4th. You got him kind of high.
It's just one slot difference. It's not a huge gap in terms of where we have them seated. The main thing is, though, I know last year they snuck up on a lot of people. I don't think a lot of people expected them to have that type of success. But now that people know about them, not that they have a target, but now that expectations are higher, can they manage those expectations? Can they live up to those expectations? Because for me, last year when teams were playing Indiana early on, they probably didn't have a lot of respect. They might not necessarily went into it like it was going to be a tough game. You see where I'm coming from? But now they know Indiana's a team that you have to take seriously and you have to come out ready to play.
Yeah, and that's why I said their confidence is going to be very high. They'll be in the bunch. I think, and we'll talk about it at the end when we sum up the East, but, 48 wins is a lot of wins. I mean, and that I don't know if that's necessarily the number. This might be kind of like the back when we saw the Western Conference where, it may take 48 may get you the 8th spot because there's so much balance in the East compared to, in the West. Because when LeBron James leaves, it makes it a little bit, makes it a lot easier, and a lot of teams become a little bit more confident in their ability. So I like the Pacers. I got them right around that mark again, 47, 48 wins, which I think will get them the 5th seed.
So 4, you got the Wizards. 5, you got the Pacers. I got the Pacers at 4, Wizards at 6.
Mm-hmm.
At 5, I have the Bucks. I'm assuming you got the Bucks at 6.
Yes, I got the Bucks at 6.
All right. Roll with why you like Milwaukee.
To me, Milwaukee didn't make any moves over the summer to get better. You let Jabari Parker go. I felt like they needed to continue to try to add another 3-point shooter to go along. We know how good the Greek Freak is. Giannis is going to be him. We know he'll be right up there for MVP votes. We know how good he's going to be. But the big question mark and why I got them so low, I'm not sold on Eric Bledsoe.
Wow.
I'm just not sold on him on being consistent throughout the season. I felt like he was the reason why they lost to the Boston Celtics in the playoffs. I thought just without with the antics going on with Terry Rozier and Terry Rozier getting the best of him kind of took him out, his flow, his game. But he also came halfway through the season, so I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt on that part, and we'll see if he's able to, with a full season, a full training camp, be able to return to the Eric Bledsoe that we saw get the $70 million contract. We'll see if he's able to get back to that level. Chris Middleton showed a lot of promise last year, especially in the playoffs, that he could be a potential all-star in this league, a guy that you can count on and get 20 a night. So it'll be interesting to see how his development goes. Just didn't do a lot in the offseason, to me, to get better.
What about the addition of Brook Lopez? When
I
you
do
talk
like
about
Brook Lopez, but it goes back to what you said. He is a pick and pop guy, low rebound guy, which I'm not sold on. But it kind of goes to what you kind of said about Dwight Howard. Unless Brook Lopez is making threes and being very good in the pick and roll as far as spacing the defense, I don't know how he helps Giannis.
Okay.
So you got to watch what you put around Giannis because he's such a gifted, athletic player that gets to the basket, who's still working on developing his jump shot. So you got to make sure you got the right pieces around him. We know they got Thon Maker, who showed some promise in the playoffs last year with a lot of energy and defensively. So they've got some pieces there. If they take off and make a run, I wouldn't be surprised. But also, if they hover around the 6th seed, I mean that's where I got them at. And they won 44 games last year, so I got them in the 6th seed right now.
So once again, we real close. I have them in the 5 spot. I think I might be a little higher on Brook Lopez than you are in terms of he has added that 3-point shot to his game. When you look at his last year in Brooklyn, he made 134 threes. Last year with the Lakers, he made 112 threes. So I think that he can add some floor spacing. And certainly Ersan Ilyasova is a guy who the Bucks added who can shoot the ball. I wouldn't necessarily call him a specialist in terms of like a J.J. Redick or a Kyle Korver.
Philly might miss him too. He was big for Philly.
Right, because you mentioned that Philly lost Marco Bellinelli and Ilyasova. Both of those guys provided some shooting touch. And when you got a guy that's 6'10" that can knock down shots, I think that's decent. So when you look at Brook, who can stretch the floor, look at Ersan, who can stretch the floor, certainly Chris Middleton, and I like what Tony Snell has been able to do in his time in Milwaukee. I don't really think that he lived up to his first-round pick status with the Chicago Bulls, but when you look at his 2 years in Milwaukee, he shot over 40% from deep in both those years, and certainly we watched the Bulls closely, and I'm like, man, this is not the same guy that we saw in Chicago. He is knocking down open threes, and to me, for whatever reason, I don't know if he's put more time in, he's more comfortable in Milwaukee, it's a better environment, a better fit, but to me, he has shot the ball better in Milwaukee, so I feel like they have some decent shooters that can allow them to be the middle of the pack, 5th, and help Giannis.
I agree with you on that. I mean, they got some pieces. I would never knock their pieces. Like I said, I think it starts with the head. It starts with Eric Bledsoe. Get Eric Bledsoe get back to form. Matthew Dellavedova, them days are over with for him. Enjoy your big paycheck, but he was a guy that benefited a couple years ago. But that's your backup point guard. I'm not sold with him at the backup point guard position. But the key to me is Eric Bledsoe. The toughest position in the NBA is the point guard position. He has to get back to his form and be that guy, be that second to third guy. Because I actually like Chris Middleton as the second guy, but can Bledsoe be a strong third guy for this team and keep his focus, keep his head up? I thought last year, like I said, in the playoffs against the Boston Celtics, he got away from staying focused, and Terry Rozier really took advantage of him in the playoffs. But I like the Bucks to be the 6th seed, and if they happen to get better than that, I wouldn't be surprised.
Well, one more note on them too. We didn't even mention they have a new coach, Mike Budenholzer, and I feel like he's a very good coach. I feel like he did some things there in Atlanta. We know he was the coach when Atlanta won 60 games. He took Atlanta to the Eastern Conference Finals. So I feel like he's a coach with experience. Whereas Toronto, I kind of knocked them for having a new coach, Nick Nurse. That's his first time as a head coach. Mike Budenholzer brings experience to this club, and I think he might be able to certainly add a couple more wins onto the Milwaukee Bucks. I don't know how you feel about him and the job that he did in Atlanta.
I thought he did a terrific job. I mean, he had 4 All-Stars at one point. This is a guy that won 60 games. went to the Eastern Conference Finals. So he definitely knows how to coach in this league. I think he's up under the Popovich
Absolutely.
regime.
Tree, yep.
Yeah, he's up under that. So he definitely knows how to coach it. One thing that's going to be good about it, he coached 4 All-Stars, and obviously that year they won 60 games. They got 4 All-Stars selected, so he's coached talent before. Now he has arguably a top 5, the top 6 player in the league, and Giannis, the Greek freak. If he can get the max out of him and make him an MVP candidate, it'll be interesting to see if he can do that. So they got a piece. Like I said, I got them at 6 right now. But if they do make a run and they are better than I project them, I would not be surprised because they do have some pieces in play. It's not like they don't have pieces in play to be successful.
We're through the top 6 teams in the Eastern Conference still to come. Who's going to be those teams fighting for those final few playoff spots in the 7th and the 8th seeds and some of those other lower tier teams? Stay with us. SouthSide Heat coming right back. We almost the same so far. We're not that far off.
No. Hold on, so I'm dead on charge, huh? 14. I got 14%.
I gave you every
You don't got no iPhone charge, do you?
I'm Team Android. Team Android.
That was all I had, man. That
John
was every
had
chord.
one?
That was every chord I
Did
had.
John got one? You asked him?
So no, we just got 7 and 8.
Huh?
No, I said we got 7 and 8. We got the GM survey and cosign decline. I don't know what you want to do after the top 8. Do you want to mention like a Knicks or the Bulls or some of them other teams? All right. Because I don't know if everybody need mention. Like I don't know if.
I mean, we're talking the Eastern Conference. So
Okay.
come on.
All right. We can bring it back.
I gotta take this thing off.
For real, that's a wrap.
14. No, so I got 14%.
Clement Townsend, Antoine Walker, SouthSide Heat. We back at it. Be sure to follow us on social media. Clement TV _ on Twitter. Clement TV _ and that will be Antoine Walker 8, or excuse me, Walker Antoine 8. I can't remember all your handles. My bad on that. Walker
Man,
Antoine 8.
They stole him.
I know, right? You wanted the same Twan on Twitter,
Yeah, they stole it, man. So,
but people go after your stuff. I know how that is.
yeah.
So we threw the first 6 teams in the Eastern Conference. Now it comes down to those squads that will be jockeying for one of those final 2 seeds, a 7 or an 8 seed. Most likely, if you 8, you're probably going to get, a chance to meet Boston in the first round and make an early exit. But, to make the playoffs, that's something to be proud of, depending on what organization you are. Who do you have in those 2 slots?
Well, first in the 7th spot, I got the Miami Heat. I like this Heat team. Young, athletic. Actually, they're exciting to watch play. The problem is they got too many guys, I think, in the same position.
They got a lot of like guards.
Yeah, a lot of like players. You think of Josh. You think of Josh Richards. You think of Gordon Dragic.
Yeah.
You look at
Tyler Johnson.
Then you got Dwayne Wade.
Yeah.
Deion Waiters coming back soon. hopefully this season. Justice Winslow, what position is he? You don't know what position he is. Obviously Hassan Whiteside. You talked about this earlier about centers not being a typical center league. He is more of a back to the basket center in this league that can rebound and block shots. Obviously, I actually read a quote that he was going to be more coachable this year because it was games last year, obviously, where he couldn't play because teams go small against the Heat, where he becomes a liability in the pick and roll, and it was games that he was not able to be effective. And Sproulson went with a smaller lineup a few times, and obviously that didn't sit well with Hassan Whiteside. And apparently they've worked that out where they're back on the same page. The Heat, one of those teams I think are going to play hard. I do believe they're going to make the playoffs. I think they're going to hover around 500. They won 44 games last year. But my expectations are not very high besides the playoffs. Now, if they're able to pull this trade off, and we may be redoing this whole segment
with Jimmy Butler,
with
who you're
Jimmy
referring
Butler,
to.
yeah, depending if they're able to pull this trade off to get Jimmy Butler, we may be redoing this whole segment. But right now, I got him in a 7 seed. I don't have him no higher than that.
Yeah, I just wonder too. In the preseason, we haven't seen Bam Adebayo, and I don't think Josh Richardson has played in the preseason either. Certainly, Dion Waiters is to me a guy that can give you buckets and give you some minutes and can hit some big shots, but he's still dealing with some ankle injuries.
Yeah, he's not back.
Yeah, he's not back, and I certainly think he's not going to be back for the start of the regular season. So I actually had a Heat of 7, just as you do.
Okay.
Just on the strength of Eric Spoelstra, a guy who's been there, who's won titles, and they do have talent on this squad, more so than maybe some of these other teams that we have behind them. Like you said, it's just a matter of the log jam. And how do you resolve the center position? Hassan Whiteside with the big contract, he's getting paid about $25 million. You talked about his inability to really shoot the three, and he can't even really guard smaller players. To me, he's like a liability in the pick and roll, when he gets switched out on guys. And then you have Bam Adebayo, very well.
Mm-hmm.
I think you were with the SEC Network when he was at Kentucky, so you've seen a lot of him, a guy who's very athletic, and I heard he's a gym rat. Like I heard over the summer, he was really trying to improve his game, really trying to get better. So he's on a rookie deal, but you paid Hassan Whiteside all this money. How do you?
Well, I think Hassan Whiteside, I think they ran to that last year, but he only has 2 years left. It was only a 4-year deal, and he's actually going into the 3rd year of that 4-year deal. So I think that's not a problem. I think the problem is like I said before, they had problems. Sproulson and them had problems when they played smaller teams, and he went small.
Okay.
And you basically take Hassan Whiteside out the game. So I think he has to be ready for one to play shorter minutes.
Whiteside.
Yes, to play shorter minutes. I think he still could be effective. Like you still can't take away from rebounding and blocking shots. You still need that on the floor. I think obviously he'll have to get a little better to be at guarding these point forwards type of guys. But one thing about Eric Spoelstra, he's a very good coach. He'll figure out a way to put him in a rotation. But it's probably one of those situations, Clement, where Hassan Whiteside would probably like to be on the floor playing 35 minutes. Probably more like 28, 29 minutes a night. I think where it becomes a problem, and you mentioned this earlier with the Celtics, who's in the game late.
Right.
That's usually where it kind of gets the guy's ego when they're not closing the game out those last 6 or 7 minutes. So
and Whiteside has been vocal about wanting to play late, and kind of been a distraction. I think they kind of had to discipline him or talk to him about some of the things he said and not being on the court at the end of games.
Yeah, they did have that, and it's actually, like I said, I read an article, him saying that he'll be more coachable this year.
Okay.
So I've read that. So they've addressed that. Like I said, he's making big money. I mean, when you look at his journey and his testimony to the NBA, I think this is one of those guys that'll sit back and be happy that he was able to get that type of money, especially because the game kind of transitioned right when he was signing his deal.
Right.
So he was able to get his deal and be a part of it. So I just like that. I mean, he got some pieces. They're always going to play you tough. It'll be interesting to see how much D Wade plays. I think we'll all be watching that. he's kind of made it known that this will be his last season. So it'll be fun to watch D Wade go out there and compete. I thought last year he was terrific. Actually, the last 2 years he's been very, very good. So I'm not expecting anything short of him being a very big part of what the Heat are doing coming off the bench, giving them 20, 25 minutes or so. But I got them in the playoffs.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see, though, what happens with this Jimmy Butler situation. Many people, including yourself, felt like this deal would be done by this point. A lot of people feel like the Heat are I guess, the top team in the running for Jimmy Butler. Some of the other squads, like the Clippers and the Nets, are in the mix. There's some rumors or some chatter that Minnesota wants Josh Richardson, they want Bam, and they want a 2019 first-round protected draft pick. But I think we both agree Jimmy Butler will be traded. I think we agree. And as it stands right now, as we take this show, Miami is the number one option, and that could change everything.
Well, they got young pieces. They got pieces that can play right away. They got guys that have been in meaningful playoff games. And if I am the Miami Heat, and we all know Tom Thibodeau is going to want to win. So we know he doesn't do necessarily great with young guys, but if they're able to get pieces that can come in and play right away, that is going to definitely happen.
Where are you going for the 8th? We both had Miami at 7, so who is going to be that team that gets that final playoff spot?
I already know who you're going with, but I'm going with the Detroit Pistons.
That's who I'm going with.
Oh, okay. I didn't know you was going there. I'm going.
You thought I was going to Chicago?
Yeah.
No, I'm not going to Chicago.
I'm going with the Detroit Pistons. I think Blake Griffin gets a full training camp with this group. He gets an opportunity to figure out how he can be successful, how he can work his game in there. It seems like through social media and stuff that I follow, that him and Andre Drummond have built a friendship, and they're trying to figure it out where those two guys can be effective. I mean, I saw videos where Andre Drummond shooting the 3 now, and just adding things to his game. Reggie Jackson is probably the biggest question mark on whether or not how successful the Detroit Pistons can be. Can he get back, one, from injury, and then also can he get back to form? To being one of the better point guards in this league. I think that's what's going to be very important when you think about the Detroit Pistons. Can Reggie Jackson get back to the level that he was at that got him a max contract with the Detroit Pistons? So that'll be interesting. New coach who's going to bring a defensive mentality, even though I believe Stan is a defensive coach too as well. But when you talk about a new coach coming in there and giving them a different identity, a guy's coming with a chip on his shoulder as a coach after getting fired.
Winning 59 games.
And winning 59 games. He's going to have a chip on his shoulder too. So look for Dwayne Casey to really, really have I can see Dwayne Casey having a really tough training camp, really trying to build that culture that he built in Toronto when they were a 50-plus win team. Obviously, we know he knows how to handle stars. Having DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry up in Toronto, now he gets an opportunity to coach a Blake Griffin. So looking forward to seeing Detroit and see if they can develop. I am a Blake Griffin fan. I know a lot of people don't like him, but I saw growth and improvement throughout his game where a guy that came in the league that was just a guy that can dunk, to go to a guy who can make a mid-range jump shot, to go to a guy who can make a three-point shot. So I've seen the growth. Now, do you build around a guy just by Blake Griffin? No, he's never been that type of guy. But he is a guy in this league. He is an all-star, and he's a proven power forward. So I got them at the AC dealing with injuries. Obviously, Blake Griffin hasn't even played in preseason yet. So you got to get, if they're healthy, they'll be a tough out in the AC.
And yeah, obviously that is the knock on Blake Griffin. We know that Blake has had many stretches where he missed significant time. Certainly comes to mind where he punched the equipment guy and had the hand injury. But when I look at last year, just played 58 games. Year before that, 61 games, 35, 67. So whether or not you have Blake Griffin on the court certainly makes a difference. But when you have Griffin and you have Drummond, the Detroit Pistons can make some noise. I just wonder about the others too. If I look at a guy like Reggie Bullock, He had some flashes last year. There were some times where he was giving you 20 points per game. So can Reggie Bullock be an impact player, in terms of helping, taking some of that scoring load from Blake Griffin or Andre Drummond? And then how about Stanley Johnson? This is a guy who they drafted 8th overall out of Arizona, and to me, he certainly has not lived up to the billing. I know coming out of Arizona that he was mostly billed as a defensive guy, but we always discuss adding something to your game. Can you at least add some type of offense to your game? Last year, he averaged 9 points per game, 37% from the field, 29% from three-point range. You at least need to add that portion so you're not so one-dimensional. When you taking top 10, Antoine, you already know. We talk about 6-pick all the time. When you taking top 10, I need you to have some type of impact. And he's now 3 years in the league and has very limited game on the offensive end. If he can develop, you got the 2 big men as we talked about in a Reggie Jackson, but if he can get him some offense, maybe they can even compete for a 7th seed.
I agree with you, and I'm a big component of guys getting better in the summer. We always say, well, they need to trade this guy or put this guy on this team. What about the guy you just gave $40 million to, $50 million to, $60 million to, them getting in the gym and working on their game? I'm big on that. So
Absolutely.
I would love to see guys improve their game. I'm always applauding guys that get in the gym and add something to their game. So I agree with you 100%. That Stanley Johnson is one of those guys that needs to get in the gym. Hopefully he spent some time in the summer to improve his game and make the adjustments. I mean, this is what it's all about. You look at Andre Drummond and then you see footage of him making threes, going off the dribble, knowing that the typical big man game in this league is done and knowing he needs to extend his range. We saw him improve from the free throw line last year. Had moments where he went on good runs from the free throw line.
Took a huge step forward.
Yeah, so we see that. So those are things that kind of turn me on and get me excited about a young player and young ball players. But obviously, Blake Griffin's going to have a monster year. And arguably, it's crazy when we start breaking down these individual awards and breaking down positions, the best in their position. I mean, besides Giannis, Blake Griffin on paper should be the second best. I don't know what position you want to put Giannis at, as 3 or 4, but should be on paper the best power forward in the Eastern Conference. And if you want to, check my files on that, but look, on paper, who's better than Blake Griffin in the Eastern Conference at that position?
Yeah, I'm with you on that one.
So I think he has to live up to that. He has to be that guy. We know Blake is very capable of putting up big numbers between him and, I'm sorry, Kevin Love. I kind of threw you out there a little bit. But Kevin Love obviously is up there too, 1A, 1B, whichever one you like. They pretty much got similar games, but that's kind of whichever one you like. So it's a lot of question marks, but it is a lot of good question marks. And I'll just sum up Detroit by saying Reggie Jackson, health, Blake Griffin being a superstar, and you got a new coach, Dwayne Casey, a guy who's been there who can get it done. Can you get these guys over the hump?
So when we look at your top 8, Celtics, Raptors, 76ers, Wizards, Pacers, Bucks, Heat, Pistons.
Yep, that's my top 8.
I'm pretty close. Celtics, 76ers, Raptors, Pacers, Bucks, Wizards, Heat, Pistons. So we have all of the same 8 teams. I remember last year when we did the show, we kind of had some other teams that I had in that you didn't have in. So in the East, we have the 8 teams. It's just a matter of order, per se.
Yeah, and let's, while we're on it, we might as well continue with our East conversation. Now, we talked about those 8 teams. So obviously, it's 14 teams in the Eastern Conference. So
15.
15, I'm sorry. It's 15 teams in the Eastern Conference. So a couple, I'm gonna pick 2 teams potentially could get in that playoff talk.
Okay.
One would be the hometown Chicago Bulls.
Oh, you think they could at least be in the conversation?
Yeah, they could be in the conversation.
Okay.
I had an opportunity to watch the Bulls both games, and obviously last night they laid an egg and got blown out of Milwaukee. But I've got a chance, and I like their talent. When Marketing comes back, I'm sorry. When he comes back, I like their young group. Not particularly so 100% on Chris Dunn at my point guard position. This guy that was taking number 5. I'm always going to be critical of the point guard position because it's our toughest position. It's the toughest position in the NBA. So I'm always going to be very critical, very, very critical of the point guard position. But I like Jabari Parker. He'll get better and better. It's a new role for him when he's getting to the point where he has to be the man. Zach LaVine, I like him when he's healthy. Wendell Carter Jr., they got some pieces. They're young. They should be a very good home team. They should be exciting. They should be athletic. I mean, watching the first night against New Orleans, score 128 points in preseason. So they've got a lot of potential. Fred Hoiberg will be a better coach with these guys. I think he's a young guy coach. I think he'll do better with this group as a head coach, so I like them. And before you comment on that, my other team, just to throw out there, is the Hornets.
Okay.
Just because, obviously, Kemba Walker, that group has been together a while. Platoon, Marvin Williams, Frank Kaminsky.
Yep.
Kaminsky's been there. I love their draft pick, Miles Bridges, who's shown flashes in preseason. He's been on some SportsCenter top 10s already, showing his athletic ability. So they've got some pieces there too as well. And that core group has been together. They got Lamb coming off the bench. So they got a group that's been there for a while. So Charlotte will be a tough out. Tony Parker on the bench, bringing that winning attitude in the locker room. So they've got some pieces on that team. So look for the Bulls and Charlotte to be in the mix too as well as that 9th or 10th seed, in that Eastern Conference. I don't know how you feel about those two teams.
Well, I'm happy you giving the Bulls some love. Absolutely. Because I feel like with the guys that they have, when you look at a Levine and a Parker and the Eastern Conference, which everybody should agree is the weaker conference, for me, is no reason why they can't contend for a playoff spot. It's just simply no reason.
Mm-hmm.
They will be better when you get Markkanen back. Markkanen has an elbow injury for those who haven't been following it. He's expected to be out to at least November. Going to miss, They're saying about 12 to 15 games. That could hurt. My thing for the Bulls is defensively. Levine and Parker, we know, aren't great on the defensive end. I have seen some highlights of Levine in the preseason, and I have heard some interviews where Levine says he's going to try to be more focused and he's going to try to be more locked in on the defensive end, so that will help. But if you're not playing defense, then you're going to have to outscore teams. And although the Bulls have some pieces on offense, some nights they probably just won't have it. And that's what we saw against Milwaukee. You watched the game. I saw the highlights. They shot 32% from the field against the Milwaukee Bucks. They were 7 of 41 from downtown. 7 of 41. That's 17%. Now, you can't hang your hat on one preseason game, but that just shows you that this team will have nights where they don't have it offensively, where they'll be off. And then if you're not locking down defensively, like some teams, Antoine, even if they don't have it offensively, they can still play solid defense and win ball games.
True.
I don't think the Bulls are one of those teams. If they don't have it offensively, their defense is not going to win them many ball games this season. But I look forward to an exciting team with the Chicago Bulls. And then, as you mentioned, certainly with the Charlotte Hornets, got a new coach there, Jim Borrego. He came from San Antonio off that Greg Popovich tree. I
forgot about that. Right.
Yep. I just wonder how much the free agency of Kemba Walker will hang over this team, because that was something that started to get a lot of press and a lot of headlines last year, and they asked them about it. So,
what I think what happened with that, I think Mitch Kupchak, having a real GM who's been there before.
Okay.
If they don't believe Kemba Walker's their point guard in the future, I believe that they'll make a move by All-Star break, because you want to get something back for him. So I think it'll all be predicated on the success of the team, how fast they get off, if they're able to be competing for a playoff spot. Obviously, Kemba Walker is the longest tenured guy, I think, with Michael Jordan, right, has been the owner.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken. So, he's a fan favorite there. He'd be hard to let go. And Kemba Walker is one of the most underrated players in this league. He's had his All-Star selection. I think he's a 2 or 3-time All-Star. So he's right there in the mix. So I think Kemba Walker's situation is, you're going two ways. You're either going to continue to build around. See, the problem with the Charlotte team is that they paid a lot of guys. Nicholas Batum, $125 million. Marvin Williams, you gave a lot of money to. It may be coming to an end for Marvin, contractual wise. So they paid a lot of guys. It's not like they haven't spent money. Michael Kidd-Gilchrist is making a ton of money, making $12, $13 million a year. So you've got guys on this team that's making a bunch of money. So you've got to be very cautious of that if you want to take a whole situation. I know Miles Bridges is a good pickup. We've yet to see if Malik Monk is going to be that guy at the 2-guard position. So they're a very interesting team. But they do have a valuable piece on that team, which I'm sure a lot of teams would love to get their hands on, and that's Kemba Walker.
So those two teams should be in the mix for the playoffs when you look at Charlotte and Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
Two teams that I think just will be teams to keep an eye on. Won't be in the playoffs, but teams to keep an eye on. One, the New York Knicks, and then what happens in Cleveland with no LeBron? Because we know last time that LeBron left Cleveland, they were just trash. And I think the season after that, after LeBron left, they won maybe 19 games or something like that.
Yeah, I thought about putting Cleveland in there. They got some veteran guys. They know how to win games. I think it's going to be predicated on the development of Sexton at the point guard position. I know they got George Hill there, but that's the future right there, the development of him. Is Kevin Love going to be a 25-12 guy, or is he going to be a 18-11 guy? I think that's going to be huge. The problem with Cleveland, why I didn't put them in the mix, in the playoff mix, I don't know who's going to be that number 2 scorer.
That's my question.
Yeah, J.R. Smith is getting much older.
Yeah.
Only thing J.R. Smith is doing is continue getting tattoos. I don't know if he's that guy. J.R. Smith was a guy that benefited a ton from playing with Kyrie Irving and LeBron James, being able to spot up and make threes. You don't necessarily have a guy that's going to command the double team, and those shots are going to be available. I just don't know who's going to be that number 2 guy. So the jury's still out on them, and obviously this will be a true test to see if T. Lue can coach this group. His coaching skills will come out. I'm a big fan of T. Lue. That's my boy, but his coaching skills are going to come out. I don't have them. I think differently about the other teams that are kind of left out. I think the Knicks, Brooklyn. I'm trying to think who else I'm in the Eastern Conference.
Magic and the Hawks.
The Hawks. I think all 4 of those teams are playing for lottery picks. I think all 4 of those teams have no aspiration of winning. I think obviously Fizdale is going to probably talk like he wants to win, but he got a 6-year deal. I think they knew that was going to be a process. These first couple years are going to be tough. I always look at how teams think.
Okay.
Because GMs, you don't give a coach a 6-year deal,
right?
If you think that you got to win right away.
But still in New York though, like don't we expect to win in New York?
No, but I think all those guys. See, one thing we're going to talk about a lot throughout the season, that it's a huge big free. You're going to have 22 teams with money next year,
right?
This summer, so they're one of those teams. They obviously going to pay for a pick. A lot of those teams are hoping, with Durant. Clement Townsend.
And there has been talk about Durant to New York.
Yeah, you see those. You got some big time free agents going to be available. Jimmy Butler, Kyrie Irving.
Yes, sir.
I mean, the list goes on and on of the guys that will be available, and you don't know what guys may opt out their deal to be a free agent again. So, so it's so many guys out there, and all these teams are stacking up, getting their money ready to get in this free agency market. So I look forward to it. But those 4 teams, the Magic, the Hawks, the Nets, and the Knicks, I believe are all playing for the lottery. I wouldn't expect much if you're fans of those teams to expect much from those teams at all.
I just want to see the player development though from David Fizdale. I'm excited that he got another shot because I feel like he kind of got a raw deal. How things played out in Memphis with Marc Gasol, however you want to put it. They weren't on the same page. He got let go. And you look at Kevin Knox, who showed some promise in the summer league. Frank Ntilikina, who they drafted the year before. Can he take a step forward, playing good defense? Can he add some offense to his game? And a guy, Mario Hezonja, who I believe was a 5th overall pick, who didn't really do much at Orlando, had a lot of hype when he came into the draft overseas. Can a change of scenery actually be good for him? So there are some players on New York that I want to see Are they developing? Are they getting better? And then when will we see Porzingis though? You know, coming off the ACL injury. This is something interesting that I read about Porzingis. He is the tallest NBA player to ever have an ACL injury. So
he'll be fine because the thing about ACL injuries, I don't know, if you keep the weight off.
Okay.
And the reason why I played with a guy, Derek Anderson. Derek Anderson had 2 ACL injuries and was able to come back in 7 months, in a short period of time. But it was because of his weight. He was a real skinny guy.
Right.
Didn't have a lot of weight on there. I think, Porzingis is not a big guy.
For sure.
As far as weight-wise. So he'll be able to bounce back really quick.
Okay. I mean, at the media day, they kept asking him, what's his timetable, when does he think he'll come back? And he just simply said, I'll come back when I'm ready. There has been talk about him missing the whole year.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he'll miss the whole year. I think they'll take their time. There's no rush. Like I just said this, I'm gonna say it again. That's one of the teams that has no expectations about winning. I think they got a young group of guys. Like you say, I think they want to see the development of some of their young guys to see if they can get better. But I think they have no rush. They're not thinking about wins and losses right now. So your franchise guy, you're not going to rush to bring him back. You're going to wait till he's 100% to come back. So that may be after All-Star break. And then you get out the All-Star break and you start playing non-meaningful games. It's hard to bring a guy back. But, he's young enough and he's going to want to play. He's a guy that wants to play. So I'm thinking All-Star break maybe for him.
Okay. We'll certainly see how things shake out in the Eastern Conference. Still to come, though, the NBA GM survey is out, and we'll find out who the GMs feel is the best player to build around, who is the active player that may be the best head coach one day, which team has the most promising core, and many, many other questions on that GM survey that we'll dive into. Stay with us. Southside Heat coming right back. I keep checking to make sure that like Butler ain't get traded or something like that.
Right, yes. Sure, I'm doing my radio show. What's up, man? Doing my radio show, man. I call you I get done. Man, keep asking me the same.
It looked like you was having some issues over there.
Yeah, I'm gonna see I'm high though. Ooh.
We'll let this rise to 325, 2 minutes.
Gotcha. I'm not to make this another one, man. It's too big though to hang in your house, huh? To get it framed, it's gonna be too big.
Yeah.
Like this picture. If I get it
You can cut
framed,
that. You can go.
I'll cut it right here.
Yeah, you can get a poster size. Pretty easy. $50.
I go, I'm gonna get one of them. Came from my crib one day. At the crib.
Why you want that in your crib, bro?
You had enough for yours, right?
That was just to show the family.
Clement, you gotta, what's you and your wife, you ain't got no work pictures in your house and you working, you on a, like interviewing nobody or nothing like that?
Not big like that. Nah, I don't. My dad got a picture from like my first TV station when I was like 21 years old or something like that. But nah, nothing like that.
back.
Yeah.
Back in the city.
Back home.
Oh, yeah, damn fool.
SouthSide Heat, Clement Townsend, Antoine Walker. We keep the basketball conversation flowing, and the NBA GM survey is out, where they took a poll of, I guess, the guys who should know a lot about the league. 17th annual GM survey. The GMs responded to 49 different questions about the best teams, players, coaches, fans, off-season moves. General managers were not allowed, though, to vote for their own team or personnel. So I guess I'll just run through some that jump out. If you were starting a franchise today and could sign any player in the NBA, who would it be? Number 1, the Greek freak Giannis. Number 2, Anthony Davis. Number 3, Kevin Durant. Now, last year, Karl Anthony Towns was number 1 in his category, and he's not even on the top 6. So that tells you how things changed. 1 year with Jimmy Butler, and folks don't even want to build around Karl Anthony Towns anymore. Now it's the Greek freak. Your thoughts on that?
Well, with Karl Anthony Towns, I think obviously tremendous skill set. He wouldn't be my number 1 choice.
Okay.
I know last year you said he was number 1 choice. He wouldn't be my number 1 choice. For me, it would probably be Anthony Davis.
Okay.
And the reason why I pick Anthony Davis is because of his skill set, his total package. When you look at a guy who's never really played with any superstars, I know DeMarcus Cousins is considered a superstar in this league, but besides that, you really think about, look at what Anthony Davis has played with throughout his career and still been able to put up monster numbers. We don't know where this guy will be at if he didn't get hurt some of these seasons, or where his numbers would be at. But you're looking at a guy who's a two-way player, a guy who can obviously, he can step out, shoot the 3, shoot the 17-footer, he can put it on the floor, he's got post moves, he shoots free throws well, and he's a two-way player. He can defend. He can defend his position, he can block shots, he can change the game. I think right now he's just now starting to come into his prime. And he showed flashes. He showed you last year, if you really think about it, when DeMarcus Cousins went out,
For sure.
when he had to put that team on his back, 1, to make the playoffs. 2, obviously they swept the Portland Trailblazers. He was terrific. And I thought he had a great series against Golden State too as well. So he's right there. If you put the right personnel around him, and if I had to build around one guy, it would be Anthony Davis.
I'm not mad at. Ooh, excuse me. I'm not mad at that. I'm not mad at that. I think you can't go wrong with either one of those guys, whether it's a Greek freak or Anthony Davis. I just thought it was interesting that GMs I don't want to build around Karl Anthony Towns anymore, but Minnesota gave him the money. But other GMs we're not even going to build around him. Another question: what was the most underrated player acquisition? Number 1, this was a lot of different results, but number 1, Tyreke Evans with only 13% of the vote. He went to Indiana. 10% of the vote, 4 people tied: DeMar DeRozan, Jabari Parker, Julius Randle, Dennis Schroeder. Your thoughts, your pick, your choice on the most underrated player acquisition?
That's a tough one because obviously we're basing because the season hasn't been played
Absolutely.
yet. This is what you like. I could be a little biased, and I saw this, and I could be a little biased in this situation, but the jury's going to still be out. I was going to say Jabari Parker.
Okay, he was in there.
And I was going to be a little biased being the Chicago hometown guy, and I believe that he's going to have a terrific season in Chicago. But I think really DeMar DeRozan. I think for the Spurs is my guy. I think obviously people think the Spurs are going to really miss Kawhi Leonard, and which they are. But to be able to give up a Kawhi Leonard and to get DeMar DeRozan back, I think we're undervaluing how good he is. And I've been one of the biggest critics of DeMar DeRozan, but this guy's improved tremendously every year. Made himself one of the prolific scorers in the league. Not necessarily a huge fan of his game, but he gets the job done. This is a guy that's had moments where he's, scored 25, 30 points a night. He's had huge nights in this league. I think he's now a 3 or 4-time All-Star, been very consistent. I wouldn't say he's necessarily a two-way player. We don't necessarily look at him. His defense doesn't necessarily jump off the page. But just as moves, we don't talk about that move because he's kind of, by getting DeMar DeRozan, he's kind of kept the Spurs. They're going to be still relevant.
They're going to be in the mix.
They're going to still be in there. They'll still be a 50-win team. And I think that we should not overlook the fact of what he brings to the table, because he got traded for such a guy that a lot of people arguably believe is the top 3 player in the league.
Another question that they had on there, and certainly I like Tyreke Evans. I mentioned how big I thought that was and what he did with Memphis and how he's going to help Indiana. Another question that jumped off the page for me was, which rookie was the biggest steal and where he was selected in the draft? And a big blue guy, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, was number 1 with 27%. He was taken 11th overall to the Clippers. GMs feel like he was a steal. Svi Mykhailiuk out of Kansas, number 2. And Wendell Carter was tied at 3 along with Michael Porter Jr. and Gary Trent. Your thoughts on SGA? I know you saw him quite a bit.
I love this improvement. Throughout the season in college, he got better and better. He was a guy that started the season coming off the bench and eventually worked his way into Kentucky's starting lineup. The last 20 games he played like he was a top 5 player in the country. He played like he should have been a top 5 pick. So him going to 11 to the Clippers was not a surprise to me. I knew he'll be a lottery pick. His poise, I love his size. He's probably about 6'3", 6'4", long arms. He's not your prototypical point guard. He's not going to hit you with the fancy passes, but he's a guy who's going to be solid. He'll be able to play 15 years in this league at the 1 or 2 in the NBA. My only problem, and I don't know if you looked at the Clippers roster, they are stockpiled at the guard spot.
They do.
They are. You got to think about. They got Patrick Beverly.
Yep.
They've got Avery Bradley. They've got Lou Williams. They're just loaded at the point guard spot, at the guard spot. I don't know if that's going to stop his development or not. I don't know what Doc has his mindset to give this guy the ball. Is he going to be your starting 2 guard? I don't know what they're going to do with him. But he could be a big part of what they're doing in their development going forward down the line. He is going to be a terrific pro.
Yeah, you always mention fit is so key. And will he be able to get those minutes? Will he be able to develop?
Yeah, it's just tough because you signed Lou Williams to a 3-year extension. You signed Avery Bradley to a 2-year deal, which I think the second year is not guaranteed. And then Patrick Beverly's in his last year. So I guess you're anticipating getting rid of all those guys and turning it over to the young fella after this year, or maybe midway through the season. So I'm looking at that. And then the Clippers are going to be in big play. It's a lot of superstars, and Kawhi Leonard and Jimmy Butler have the Clippers on their radar as one of the destinations of teams that they want to be on. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
The LA Clippers have possibly turned into a destination. Who would have ever thought that would be the case?
LA, baby. Everybody want to be in LA, La La Land.
Yeah. I'm looking at their roster too. Don't forget they got the guy from overseas, Milos Teodosic, that played guard for the Clippers too.
That's why I said they're stockpiled at the guard position. So it'll be interesting what they do. The Clippers got an interesting roster. They got some pieces. They got some guards. They can move some stuff around. And I think that's why they're in play. But they've had a couple superstars, Kawhi Leonard, Jimmy Butler, have expressed interest in going to play for the Clippers. So I don't know that good weather out there in LA, man.
Yeah. Hard to really turn that
and
down.
I think the Clippers have got better facilities too. And you got a different owner. You got an owner. You got a billionaire owner. So it's a different culture for the Clippers too. But believe me, they better understand, it's Laker land right now, baby, for the next 4 years.
With Bron in the city,
Yeah.
no doubt about it. We move on to which active player will make the best head coach someday. 25% of the vote went to Chris Paul. Tied at 7%, you got C.J. McCollum, Jameer Nelson, Rajon Rondo, and Garrett Temple. Interesting to see Garrett Temple's name on the list, why GMs felt like he will make a good coach. But we know Chris Paul and his understanding of the game, not a real surprise there.
Well, I would take Rajon Rondo over Chris Paul.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Chris Paul is one of the better point guards, one of the prototypical point guards that we've had in the league. But if I look at Rajon Rondo, and I look at the last couple of years, what he's been able to do with the Chicago Bulls and down in New Orleans Hornets, and I look at his play on the court and the success of the team. You look at the Chicago Bulls, they were dead in the water. They were a team that creeped in the playoffs. Rajon Rondo averages a triple-double the first 2 games, gets hurt, and they get swept 4 games when he's not on the floor. And then I look at New Orleans last year, they was able to sweep Portland. Obviously played a competitive series against Golden State. I know it only went 5, but they were some very competitive games. The way he takes young guys under his wings, I think he'll be a great coach in this league. Floor general, prototypical point guard. He'll be one of those guys that'll be a head coach in this league. More so than the Chris Paul. I think that $160 million Chris Paul just makes right now. He probably won't. He may not want to coach now.
Certainly, he's made enough where he will be all right. CP3 is going to be good. Not to mention you add in them checks from State Farm. He got that in, right?
I mean,
right.
he's always made enough money, but I'm
Right.
just saying that 160 take you all the time. You may not want to coach then.
You like, why do I want to deal with
Yeah,
that?
I want to deal with that.
Which team has the most promising young core? 47%, almost half of the GM said the Philadelphia 76ers had the most promising young core. Boston, number 2, 33%. 2 teams tied for 3rd, Chicago and Phoenix with just 7%. A little surprising there that it wasn't a little bit closer, like the 47%, everybody buying into the process in the city of brotherly love.
I would agree. I mean, those 2 teams. I would think Boston and Philly, and obviously people gotta understand. I know you hear Kyrie name a lot, but Kyrie came in at 18. Kyrie's 25 years old.
He is young.
So they are young. So I mean, I think it's neck to neck. I think, I would have been surprised if the numbers would have been closer to 42 to 43% for
Right.
both of those teams. But both of them are in great spots, great positions. The one thing that's sexy about the Celtics is that they're in great position for probably the next 4 or 5
They
years.
still have first round
Yeah,
picks.
so that's still in great position. So the Celtics, you got to give them a little bit more credit than that. Where Philly's kind of at a standstill with where they're at right now, because these young guys have to pan out. And if their team continues to get better, it won't be any lottery picks jumping off the page over the next couple of years if they continue to win 50-plus games and go deep in the playoffs.
Yeah, I was just surprised at the disparity, as you mentioned, where it wasn't like 45-40, 43-38, because what we've seen from the young guys there on Boston without Gordon Hayward and what we've seen without Kyrie Irving. You talk about how well they played in the playoffs at home and the fact that they made it all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals, and they just had a fantastic season without Gordon Hayward, who only played the first game, and Kyrie missed a significant amount of time. So you talk about Kyrie, certainly Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, and even some of the other guys that they have on their squad that are younger players. I would just think it would be a little bit closer with, I guess, what they've proven or what they did last year. I would have thought that would be a little bit closer. But hey, the GM's going with Philadelphia 76ers. Can't necessarily disagree with that. This one threw me off because I don't even really know who I would have had in the category at all, and it is who is the toughest player in the NBA. And the guy who had 33% of the vote, Steven Adams, toughest guy in the NBA. When they told him, he was like, "Oh, really?" He was like, "Do I get a bonus for that?" He's like, "Do I get a prize or something like that?" But Steven Adams, toughest number 1. LeBron, number 2, tied with Marcus Smart. I'm down with Marcus Smart. I don't know about LeBron, the toughest. And then your guy Draymond was number 4, terms of toughest guys. Steven Adams, though, surprising there?
No, I can see that. I mean, he seems like a pretty tough guy. This probably shouldn't be a category because the league is so soft now. You don't really know who's tough, and we ain't never seen that. These guys ain't throwing no hands. So it's hard for me to even comment on this because these guys are not putting no hands up. This is a different era of guys, so it's a toss-up, bro.
It's like does not apply for you. It's like
it's not registering for me.
You would have skipped that one, like
Yeah. This ain't the era, man. They ain't play with the Charles Oakleys, man. They ain't play with them type of guys. This ain't that era. This is a nice guy league. These guys go to dinner and eat popcorn and get their hotel rooms next to each other. That's these type of guys are.
For you, that would have been not applicable. I think that does it for the GM survey. Certainly plenty of other questions. You can check that out on the web. Some of the other things in terms of who you think will win a title, who has the best basketball IQ, et cetera, some other conventional questions, who's the most versatile player. There weren't too many surprises in the other questions. Those were the ones that jumped out to me. On the other side, though, when we come back, it is time for cosine or decline. I got some interesting topics that would almost bring the show to a close. Stay with us. SouthSide Heat coming right back. Yeah. Yeah. What's up?
No, I was just looking. So when you're fading in with your music, with this one, you already have it playing, right? You already have it going.
Yeah, I do.
And then you're just basically bringing it up, bringing the volume up.
Right.
Okay.
And then I guess we can hear it in here. Like I end up muting it in here. So you know what I mean. I slide it down and I will mute it in here. It's it's just easy for me to work when I don't hear. I guess the music still.
Right. So we had to mute it because we're still on Facebook Live. At least they have something in the background there. Okay.
Yeah. I just got cosine and decline. I think we can go 10 minutes on that, bro. We might end up getting out a little bit early. Remind me to do the podcast festival type thing too. If for some reason I forget, I get all.
I repeat podcast festival. Repeat that.
Yeah. October 18th, Refuge Live podcast festival.
No tough guy category.
I can't. That's I don't know if they should put that on there.
He said I can't even do it. I can't even do it. You know about this J.R. Smith tattoo story?
I heard about it. He said it was against something where he put Supreme on his leg.
Yeah.
Why did they want that shown?
Because it's like the logo of a company, so you can't display the logo of a company. So that's part of
Supreme is one of the sponsors.
They're not a sponsor.
One of his sponsors.
I don't think they just a company. Period. So just
What
like
does Supreme mean to him?
he just liked the brand.
Oh, man.
He just think the brand cool. So he tattooed on himself. I ain't never heard of the brand before. So just like, you can't get a Converse tattoo. Like, nah, that's like a represent another company that's not one of our sponsors. Our sponsors pay us. So you run up and down the court and people see Supreme. It's like they, getting free publicity, free advertising off you. So they like, we're gonna find you every game unless you cover that up.
Plus, why would he do it anyway? Because I can check that.
Too much time on his hands. Straight up. All eyes on me. You gonna watch any of the baseball playoffs with the Cubs not being in it?
You know what? I'm gonna watch this Yankees Red Sox series.
Yeah,
That's probably it.
That should be alright.
Definitely not watching no fucking Rockies and fucking
Brewers. Or the Braves and the Dodgers. Who else is it? Houston and Cleveland. I like Houston. I might watch a little bit of Houston and Cleveland. All eyes on me. 3:45.
I gotta sit in my nominees for the SEC.
Oh yeah.
Prediction order, all SEC teams and MVP. Ain't that bad.
Clement Townsend and Antoine Walker back on the SouthSide Heat. About to shut this party down. Be sure you follow us on social media, Twan Walker 8 on Instagram, Twan Walker 8. You also can get the most inspirational posts if you ever feeling down. You can check out Antoine Walker on social media. I'm C Townsend TV. I'll hit you with some inspiration as well, but probably not as much as Antoine.
Yeah, I'm a love doctor too, so I gotta spread it out a little bit.
When you're a good person, you don't lose people; they lose you.
Yeah, but I gotta give them a little love. Though. You know what I mean? No, some people might need some little relationship advice that day. I try to make sure I help all the people out.
Show your versatility.
Yeah, you can understand that.
One more note, if you are in Chicago Thursday, October 18th at Refuge Live, come out and party with a purpose. Be in the Mix is presenting Music and the Mission. You can experience some of the best Chicago artists in R&B and hip-hop. This event will support and bring awareness to liver cancer. Refuge Live, located at 416 South Clark Street, Thursday, October 18th. Before we get out of here, time for one of my favorite segments. I really like Name That Teammate. That's something that we did during the summer. We might have to bring that back at some point. But it's time for cosign or decline. You know how it goes down. I make a statement. If you agree, cosign. If not, decline. J.R. Smith got a tattoo of the streetwear company Supreme on his leg. And the NBA has said every game that he wears that and doesn't cover it up, he will be fined. Cosign or decline, the NBA is right to fine J.R. Smith for that tattoo.
I decline this. I think you should be able to do what you want to do to your body. If you want to be dumb and crazy and put Supreme on your body.
That's dumb? That's where we're going?
Yeah, at some point the tattoos get a little old. I guess I don't have any tattoos, so it's hard for me to understand what goes behind a tattoo. I understand when you put your mom and your kids and people that mean the world to you. I get that. But when you start putting Supreme on your body, come on now. At some point, it's got enough is enough. And I know it's unfortunate for JR because you should be able to do whatever you want to do to your body. But once again, this is a business, man. Guys have got to understand. I'm pretty sure when he put that on, he never thought that he was going to get backlash from the NBA.
Right.
I don't think he was down there. But this is also the guy that did not know the time and score of the game too in the final. So, the jury's still out on JR, but I think the league should. Unless this is really, and they believe that this is a marketing ploy by Supreme or whatever to make money. He should be able to get whatever tattoo he wants on his body.
And most people would say, well, why did he get that? Did he get paid? And in the interview, J.R. Smith said he did not get paid, said he just likes the look. So, that's just, it is what it is.
I guess he liked the look. I don't know how you like the look because on the back of your leg, so when you looking at it.
True. It's just like on the calf.
I don't know, man. You know what? It's so hard for me to get involved in the tattoo thing. Like I never understood that the piercings and the tattoos.
How were you in the league for 13 years? Like tattoos, I'm sure that was in when you was in the league. Like you gotta have arms.
My mom was like, "You're not getting no tattoos."
What do you mean?
Like, ain't no piercing and no tattoos growing up.
Right.
So it never was my thing.
So when you got to the league, though, and because I would imagine at some point guys was like, man, bro, I'm about to get this new tattoo, about to go to the tattoo shop.
I'm comfortable telling my daughters I love you. I'm comfortable having pictures of my daughters to express my love for them. I'm comfortable putting my kids on my screensaver of my phone when I need to take a look at them. I don't need to tattoo their name on my body to look at them.
Never had a desire.
Nah, never had a desire, man. Now you got tattoos? How many tattoos you got?
I don't have any tattoos either.
Oh, you don't have any tattoos?
No.
I just knew you was about to say I got 6.
You knew I did not have any tattoos.
No, I
bro.
didn't. I thought you may have like 6, bro. I thought you may be a low-key tattoo guy.
Nah, I don't get down with the tattoos either. But when I think of the NBA, because the guys play, in the no sleeves.
And then you know what's crazy? None of my friends, my close friends that I grew up with, that I actually, broke bread with, and on the everyday, that was never our thing. we never talked about getting a tattoo. So that was how we roll. But this new generation, they always got some, and I wouldn't even consider JR new. He's getting up there in age, but I mean, if you want to put Supreme on your body, let him. I mean, I don't know why the league is getting involved at all.
That's the NBA. Certainly, J.R. Smith has had some offenses in the past in terms of silly stuff like untying shoelaces and other things of that nature. He's one of those guys, to me, he's got a target on him for who he is, J.R. Smith is. So that's why the league, you're not going to cut him any slack.
Well, yeah, he presses the envelope. He has pressed the envelope through his time in the league. I mean, you gotta understand, it's the same guy that didn't know time and score in the finals with 4 seconds to go in the game, 5 or 6 seconds to go in the game. This is the same guy when they celebrated the championship. He had his shirt off the whole time. I mean, so he's always doing things that's gonna attract attention to himself.
Threw the bowl of soup at your boy Ty Lue. Can't forget that.
At Damon Jones.
At Damon Jones. Excuse me. But
so he's always gonna create drama for himself. That's just J.R. Smith.
Yeah. Whether or not you knew it, you probably do. But Rod Strickland, a guy from Chicago, is the godfather of Kyrie Irving. Certainly 2 stellar point guards in their own right. So Kyrie Irving is a much better player than Rod Strickland was. Cosign or decline?
I'm going to decline that. I think a lot of people don't know how good Rod Strickland was. I think Kyrie Irving obviously is going to finish a Hall of Famer. He'll finish better than Rod Strickland. But right now, at this point of his career, I'm not going to, just say he was that much better than Rod Strickland.
Okay.
And to clean up a little information from you, he's actually Kyrie's from New York. Rod Strickland's from New York.
Right, he just played at DePaul.
He played at DePaul,
yeah.
So those guys are from New York, and he is that. So obviously, he's going to be better than Rod Strickland in his career. He'll be a first-time ballot Hall of Famer. I mean, he could possibly be a multiple-time champion, depending on where he play at. So definitely, but right now at this point in his career, I'm gonna give Rod Strickland a lot more credit than that. Rod Strickland's still one of the better underrated point guards that would play the game. Wasn't necessarily flashy, but had a handle, finishes well. Every place he played at, he was solid.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna get Kyrie that. Not just that, but it's obvious that Kyrie's gonna be better than him at the end of the day.
And you saying Kyrie is better now, but not much better? Because my statement was much better than Rod Strickland.
No, he's not much better.
Okay.
Not right now.
All right.
He'll finish his career much better than him.
Final question before we wrap things up: cosign or decline? LeBron James is a better scorer than Kobe Bryant.
Decline that.
You have to think about that one, though.
Well, I want to give LeBron a fresh shake and think about, he shocked me in his 15th year. He was much more offensive minded when it comes to posting up, making fadeaways. The 3-point shot got better. Obviously, he still was inconsistent from the free throw line, but his offensive skill package was a lot better in his 15th year than we saw in his 10th year. But when you talk about Kobe Bryant, you're talking about like the Michael Jordan of the game, the Kevin Durant's, guys that are elite scorers. They can score from anywhere on the floor. That's their whole and sole purpose is to score the basketball. So it's hard for me to put LeBron James in the same category as Kobe Bryant when it comes to scoring the basketball.
I'm with you on that. That was something that I saw on Twitter, and I guess they were just trying to say that LeBron is a great scorer and sometimes doesn't get his due. I think that was the point that they were trying to make. But to think that LeBron is a better scorer than Kobe, man, it's just tough, for me to see that. We know LeBron has really improved his jumper as the years have gone on, really added the three-pointer to his game. I still don't know if LeBron has a go-to move. I felt like Kobe could, get his jumper off in certain situations. And I just felt like Kobe was better at getting his shot. I don't know what LeBron's shot is. I hear you talk about a package a lot of times. Mm-hmm. And for me, Kobe just had a bigger package of offensive moves and things that he could go to. I don't really know if LeBron has a package on offense. Like, he could take you in the post. He's bigger than you. You know, he's got some good handles to get to the hole, but I don't know if he has something to go to.
LeBron James is a basketball player,
Right.
With a very big high basketball IQ. LeBron James has more Magic Johnson-like skills than a Kobe Bryant or Michael Jordan skills. I think because of his ability not to score the basketball, it kind of made some people not like LeBron because of his body and his size. They thought he could just pretty much overwhelm guys or overpower guys from time to time, and he did not do that throughout his career. And he shied away from sometimes the big moments and taking the big shots. But LeBron James is a pure basketball player. You don't consider him a scorer. Kobe Bryant is a scorer, an assassin, a guy who wants the ball at the end, a guy who wants to take the big shot, a guy who has an array of moves, like you just said, a package to score the basketball, an offensive skill set that a lot of guys didn't have. So you got to put him in that same category.
That is pretty crazy to me. Before we get out of here, do want to let folks know about they can see us live, Antoine,
Oh,
at
yes.
Chicago Podcast Festival. More information on that to come. It will be December 2nd at the Chicago Theater Works. It will be our first live show. I believe the time is 7:30. I believe that is the time.
Yeah, we need people to come out and support, man. As it gets closer, we'll continue let you guys know about the information, and we're looking forward to it. Try to put together a great show for you guys, and hopefully there'll be a lot of content out there. But it'll be our first live show, and get an opportunity to come out and check us out and give us a lot of support. So make sure you keep that December 2nd on your calendar.
Mark it down on your calendar. You can check us out live, Chicago Theater Works, 7:30 in the Windy City. That about does it for another episode of the Southside Heat. You know where to find us. iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify. Wherever you find podcasts, you can find us. And we'll be back here again next week with another episode of the Southside Heat.
Yes, sir.